Be old news to some, but last year it was confirmed that the U.S. military has been manipulating social media by using fake identities to influence conversations and spread pro-American propaganda. It's called Online Persona Management Services. And under the CENTCOM contract, it allows the creation of up to 10 sock puppet accounts for every U.S. serviceman or woman working on the program. The stipulations are that every fake persona must have a convincing background, history, and supporting friend networks so that it will remain undetectable from even the most sophisticated adversaries. According to The Guardian, the project has been likened by web experts to China's attempts to control and restrict free speech on the internet. And that critics are saying that it allows the U.S. military to create a false consensus in online conversations, crowd out unwelcome opinions, and smother commentaries or reports that do not correspond with its own objectives. Now, of course, according to CENTCOM, their only objective is to counter violent extremists and enemy propaganda outside of the U.S., and that it would be unlawful to address U.S. audiences with the technology. Wow, unlawful, really? Interesting. Because the newest version of the 2013 NDAA included an interesting amendment. This amendment legalized domestic propaganda on the American public. You heard me right. The newest NDAA wasn't just reauthorizing the indefinite detention of American citizens. It also allowed the U.S. government to legally carry out misinformation campaigns against the citizens of this country. But is this really surprising to anyone? I mean, the corporate media is basically a propaganda arm of the U.S. government anyways, isn't it? Why the need to legalize the use of propaganda when you already have an entire mainstream media establishment lacking to the White House, reprinting government press releases without question, selling wars, and carrying water for the administration? In fact, aside from everything I just mentioned, the Pentagon already spends $4 billion a year to influence public opinion, and the Department of Defense also spends hundreds of millions of dollars on information campaigns in countless countries occupied by the U.S. military. But perhaps even more disturbing than all of this is the fact that the CIA has already been infiltrating the biggest press institutions since the early 1950s. One has to look no further than Operation Mockingbird, a secret CIA campaign to spread disinformation and false stories to foreign governments during the Cold War. It did this by manipulating the media into focusing on propaganda, sabotage, and subversion. It was later revealed in congressional hearings that the CIA program consisted of literally paying off editors and reporters at most mainstream news outlets. The New York Times, CBS, Time, The Washington Post, Newsweek, AP, Reuters, and countless more. In one instance, a journalist named Joseph Alsop, who's alleged to have been one of the most prominent journalists working under Operation Mockingbird, wrote foreign affairs articles that appeared in over 300 publications. So, isn't it nice to know that the supposed watchdogs of the government can be so easily bought? Even though the intent of this program was to focus on matters outside of this country, it undoubtedly influenced everyone living here at the time. People to this day could still be reading and referencing these articles, not knowing that they're completely fake. And sure, this is more than 50 years ago, but let's face the facts here. Our media is much worse now and has been much more easily compromised now. So how do we know that Operation Mockingbird still isn't in effect? Well, we don't. So, the next time you sit down to read the Sunday paper or visit an online forum, just remember, don't believe everything you read.
Question: how does a man born in Australia become wanted by the United States, claim asylum from Ecuador in an embassy based in London in order to avoid extradition to Sweden? The answer? That man is Julian Assange, founder of Wikileaks. So what exactly is going on? In order to better understand, we need to go back a couple of years. The first publication of the diplomatic leaks known as Cablegate had begun to take place. The shocking collateral murder video footage had been exposed, and the Afghan war logs had also been published. Julian Assange had become a worldwide cyber celebrity, and at least in the US government's eyes, public enemy number one. It was in this climate, on August 11, 2010, that he arrived in Sweden to give a lecture at the Swedish Christian Social Democrat organization. An appearance partly arranged by a woman whom we shall call Miss A. As well as giving a talk, Julian Assange was also there to negotiate the use of some internet servers housed in a former underground nuclear fallout shelter. It would provide a secure base for Wikileaks data. Although Julian Assange and Miss A had not met before, reports suggest that they arranged in advance that he would stay in her apartment while she was away. Miss A, however, returned home a day early, and the two are alleged to have had sex that night. Miss A would later tell police that although the sex was consensual, Assange had been forceful and ignored her requests to use a condom. Assange denies this. Despite later making these claims, on the days that immediately followed, Miss A accompanied Julian Assange to the conference at which he was to speak, organised a crayfish party in his honour at her apartment, which went on until the small hours of the morning, tweeting at 2 a.m. a tweet along with others indicating she was enjoying Julian Assange's company, which she is alleged to have attempted to later delete. A male guest at the party would also later tell Swedish police that when he offered to put Assange up at his apartment, Miss A replied. The next day, Assange attended a dinner party organised by Swedish Pirate Party founder Rick Falkvinge, with whom Assange had negotiated the use of the servers in the fallout shelter. Miss A again accompanied Assange through this dinner and left with him. If this behaviour seems a little inconsistent for someone who would later claim that she had been sexually assaulted 2 nights prior, things get stranger. The following day, Julian Assange allegedly had sex with another woman who had also attended the August 14 conference. We'll call her Miss W. On August 19, Miss W and Miss A managed to get in contact with each other and allegedly share concerns they have about aspects of their respective sexual encounters, mainly that Assange hadn't used a condom. Miss A asks him to move out, which he did the next day. On August 20, Miss A accompanies Miss W to the Klara police station in central Stockholm, simply to inquire as to whether it would be possible to compel Assange to take an STD test. Miss A, it is alleged, had gone along primarily to support Miss W. It turns out, however, that she knew the police officer on duty at the time, and that they were in fact political associates. We'll call her Officer K. It is perhaps not that unusual that Miss A took Miss W to see a police officer she knew. What is unusual, however, is that contrary to police protocol in virtually every developed country, including Sweden, not only was Miss A allowed to remain present throughout the interview, but the interrogation had been neither audio recorded nor video recorded. Officer K has claimed she could not find a working dictaphone. This despite being in a major Stockholm police station that does, of course, have videotaping facilities. Sometime during Miss W's questioning, the police announce that Assange was to be arrested and questioned about possible rape and molestation. Upon hearing this, it is alleged that Miss W became so distraught that she refused to give any more testimony and even refused to sign what had been taken down. This didn't matter, since rape in Sweden falls under public prosecution laws. The police and the prosecution do not need the consent of the victim in order to conduct an investigation. Without being notified of the charges or even being given an opportunity to respond, an arrest warrant was then issued for Julian Assange. Although the prosecutor's office might not have contacted Assange, within hours they let the whole of Sweden know what was going on, leaking to the Expressen tabloid the statements of Miss A and Miss W. The newspaper front page read, "Assange hunted for rape in Sweden." Julian Assange wakes the following morning to read the newspapers, shocked to learn that he is wanted for double rape. Within 24 hours, however, on August 21, a more senior prosecutor dismissed the rape allegations, leaving only the lesser accusation of molestation. That day, however, Miss A gets a follow-up call from the police. They want to know further specifics about her sexual encounter with Assange. Miss A gives a telephone statement allegedly leading the police to believe that she just might have a used condom still lying around from a week earlier. The police retrieve the condom from Miss A as evidence. This condom has since been tested and found to lack any traces of Julian Assange's genomic DNA, and opens up serious questions of whether Miss A attempted to fabricate evidence. On August 30, Assange willingly went to the police and made a statement. During the interview, he expressed his fears that anything he said would end up in the tabloid newspaper Expressen, to which the interviewing officer replied, "The interview was leaked." On September 1, 2010, Swedish Director of Prosecution Marianne Ny says she is reopening the rape investigation against Mr. Assange. What follows is a brief timeline of events since the reopening of the investigation. On September 15, the prosecutor told Assange he was permitted to leave Sweden, which he soon does and travels to London. On November 18, Stockholm District Court approves a request to detain Mr. Assange for questioning on suspicion of rape, sexual molestation, and unlawful coercion. The prosecutor says that Julian Assange has not been available for questioning. Mr. Assange's British lawyer says his client offered to be interviewed at the Swedish Embassy in London or Scotland Yard or via video link. He accuses Marianne Ny of abusing her powers in insisting that Mr. Assange return to Sweden. On this, Assange's lawyers have a point. It is well within Sweden's laws to allow a person to depose on video or to send investigators abroad, which they have done in the past. Marianne Ny stated, however, that according to circumstances in the investigation, that Julian Assange be present within Sweden for questioning. Curiously, however, she refused to explain just what those circumstances happened to be. On November 20, Swedish police issue an international arrest warrant for Mr. Assange via Interpol. 10 days later, Interpol issues a red notice for Mr. Assange. On December 8, the Wikileaks founder gives himself up to London police and is taken to an extradition hearing. He is remanded in custody pending another hearing on December 14. For more than 500 days, Julian Assange and his legal team fought his extradition through the Magistrates' Court, to the High Court, and on to the Supreme Court, the most powerful court in the land. But on June 14, Julian Assange lost his final appeal. The Supreme Court ruled he would have to be extradited. 5 days later, Julian Assange flees to the Ecuadorian embassy in London and claims political asylum. On August 15, 2012, Ecuador's foreign minister claims the UK has issued a threat to enter the Ecuadorian embassy in London to arrest Mr. Assange. The Foreign Office says it reminded Ecuador that it has the power to revoke the diplomatic immunity of an embassy on UK soil, and says Britain has a legal obligation to extradite him. This is a remarkable statement, not just because of the diplomatic implications. After all, could you imagine them saying this to the Chinese or French embassy? But because when faced with the same legal obligations to extradite former Chilean dictator Augusto Pinochet over a decade ago to Spain to face war crimes, murder and torture charges, Britain refused to comply. On August 16, Ecuador grants asylum to Mr. Assange, saying there are fears his human rights might be violated if he is extradited. The UK government expresses its disappointment. And so we arise at a stalemate. Julian Assange holed up inside the Ecuadorian embassy, the British police outside with orders to arrest on sight, the Swedish prosecutors steadfastly refusing to compromise, and the US authorities standing on the sidelines, suitably vague as to their intentions. And what of Australia, Assange's home country? Well, despite the fact that its embassy in Washington has been preparing for Assange's possible extradition to the US, Bob Carr, Australia's foreign minister, has labelled the idea preposterous. But according to Assange lawyers, this stalemate could easily be broken if Swedish authorities simply guarantee that Assange will not be extradited to the US if he comes to face trial, or the US government officially states that they are not planning on prosecuting Julian Assange. The fact that no such guarantees or assurances have been made, and given the disturbing nature in which the case has been handled by Swedish prosecutors to date, raises obvious questions.
Everybody knows that the FBI uses all sorts of tracking devices on cars, cell phones, and whatnot, everything that can carry GPS. The American Civil Liberties Union filed a request under the Freedom of Information Act asking for the Justice Department to reveal the FBI's guidelines, their internal memos as to how and under what circumstances they track people. As of now, there is no clear understanding among Americans of when they will be subjected to tracking, possibly for months at a time, or whether the government will first get a warrant. This is the Justice Department's response. More than 100 pages of completely redacted material, except for the title. So to the question how, when, and why the government can track its citizens, the FBI responded with this. Takes a lot of ink to print out something like this. Some artistic souls may think of the painting Black Square by Malevich. We're certainly not sure of the artistic intentions of the U.S. Justice Department or the meanings they put into these black pages, but for civil liberties advocates here, this is what government secrecy looks like. Actually, it was last month when President Obama signed a bill that essentially allows the government to spy on anyone they want under some kind of a general warrant as opposed to an individual warrant. In other words, it allows the National Security Agency to vacuum up as much private communication as possible with something like a promise on the authorities' part to be really careful about when and how they look at it. But civil liberties advocates argue that the Bill of Rights is not about the government's promises of good intentions, but about legal guarantees. So President Obama may be very convincing when he talks about individual freedoms. We heard the words in his inaugural speech this Monday. But here is the FBI version of that freedom.
Some guy just got chased down and thrown in a car for no reason. This is a peaceful march. It's okay.
What the fuck? No cops. No KKK. No fascist USA. No cops. No KKK. No fascist USA. Cops. No KKK. No fascist USA. No cops. No KKK, no fascist USA. No cops, no KKK, no fascist USA. Fuck you guys.
Why are you doing that? What did he do? Why are you doing that? Ask yourselves why. Why?
Fucked him up. Fuck you guys. The Secret Service came and took a kid. Yeah, you just did it. You shit. Fucking assholes. What's your name? Probably this way. Oh, they're in the bridge? Yeah, anywhere. Are we trapped here?
Civil, I think.
They fucking trapped us and gassed us.
What the fucking commander? What the fuck is wrong with you? You're a fucking traitor! You're nothing but a fucking traitor!
Welcome to the Kaiser Report. I'm Max Kaiser. America is a frickin' gulag.
Here.
Is it bleeding? bleeding a lot?
Do you need me to call people?
Call 911.
Just remain calm.
Okay.
I need you to breathe. I need you to breathe.
Yeah, I'm fine right now as long as I don't have to see it. No, I'm not. I'm just getting a little nervous. It's okay.
I'm Tim Buzzard. I'm a student of the University of Pittsburgh. I live in the towers right across the street from this bridge here, and I was in the bridge observing the riot, and police riot squad surrounded us from both sides on the steps. We couldn't escape, and they shot multiple cans of tear gas into us, severely burned us. I mean, I feel like I'm on fire. My face feels like it's on fire. My nose is running, my eyes are burning, but I definitely feel like our rights have been violated. We were just observing, and they were shooting tear gas into us. Who was responsible? The police, the chief of police. They have no business infringing on our campus.
Citizen, and you shall be arrested for having freedom of speech and using the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. The Constitution is a very dangerous concept. Do not dare try to invoke the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. This is no longer America. This is Walmart, the United States of America.
I got you.
Arrest everybody, you damn criminals. How dare you think you have freedom of speech? There is no freedom of speech anymore.
Shame!
Please listen to the jackboot officers. They will tell you what to do and what to buy. Please continuing shopping and paying taxes. You have no longer any freedom of speech.
Take the media kid. Run! Run! Oh my god! Oh my god! That is so scary. The kid is walking. Yeah, he's over there. Run! Beat the shit out of it. Oh my god! Right there. Run, man. Run. Down. Oh my god! Oh my god! They're beating people. Oh my god! Holy fuck! Dog. Oh my god! Look at the dog. Let me see. Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Trying to get inside the Look at the dog. He wants to like kill her. Are we getting this on camera? Please get this on camera. Guys, this does not make me feel like safe with the police. Oh my god! Oh my god, these dogs are so scary. Is she okay? She's not moving.
That's right. America is becoming a gulag. What if Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, had done 50 years in prison for his blue box shenanigans?
Support Obama after the banker bailouts and the extension of the war?
I mean, my support for Obama was very conditional to begin with. I never had hopes that it would be beyond the sort of centrist Democratic president that he is now. Many people, some of us hoped that because he looked like a different president and he talked like a different president, it would be a different kind of president. It clearly hasn't been. But I'm not waiting around for him to change. The people of Occupy Wall Street are not waiting around for him to change. This is a movement from the bottom up. It's a movement that has to be reckoned with. This country and the planet is owned and run by people who don't deserve to. They do it in the name of profit. They do it in the name of privilege. They do it at the expense of human rights and the expense of environmental rights. What you're seeing in the currently 1,300 cities, towns, and hamlets across the world that are being occupied is people across the spectrum who do not feel represented by their corporate masters. They do not feel represented by their government sponsors. They do not feel represented by the Tea Party, the Democratic Party, the Republican Party are having their voices to be heard. I think it's about time.
About sort of President Obama not having the courage potentially to have hold Wall Street accountable for the crimes.
Potentially.
What are the crimes and why does he have the courage?
Well, the crimes are the fact that people can no longer afford to keep their homes. That's a crime. While the bankers who torpedoed the Wall Street malfeasance that originally torpedoed the economy goes unaccounted for. Those are huge economic crimes which cause death and destruction to the poor and working class families in the United States. Well, these people are just like, oh, I lost $1 billion, but I still got $3 billion in the bank. I'm off to my yacht. Seek peace. Peace out. Those are the kind of crimes. But you can't. If you're the president of the United States, you can't prosecute those crimes because you depend on those people.
In what sense?
to get into office, to stay in office. Those are the interests that you serve. I worked for a United States Senator for 2 years, Senator Alan Cranston from California. And while he was a very progressive person, more progressive than Obama, I got to witness firsthand that every day he was on the phone asking rich guys for money. None of that money comes for free. We're not, the strength of Occupy Wall Street, of Occupy America, is that we're not begging and pleading for help. We're not begging and pleading for some savior to wave a magic wand after we cast our ballot into the void every 4 years. This is a movement that's defining itself and figuring out what it's going to do to change the world. Inspired by Arab Spring, inspired by Greece and Spain, and not yet the UK, but inspired by the feeling that all you need to do to change the world is get out your door in the morning, stand up in your place in time. And while there was some hope, at the beginning of the Obama campaign that this would be a different presidency, everybody, like, the blinders are off. The blinders are off. Like, we're on our own. And that's the thing, I think, the strength of Occupy Wall Street, is that we've got to figure this out ourselves, and we're not going to wait for them.
But if that's the case, should we move beyond the political system as it exists?
That's what's happening. Look around.
Is this a revolution?
I mean, we'll see. What day are we in right now? Is this week 3, week 4?
Week 3, week 4, but who knows if the media is still going to be here week 5, week 6, right?
The media doesn't make a revolution. The media didn't report on it until somebody got pepper sprayed. Then the media didn't report on it nationally until 700 people got arrested. It was happening, but the media wasn't reporting on it. Now, the guy from Rage Against the Machine is performing, so the media's reporting on that now, too. But it's happening whether or not any of those things are occurring.
Whoa, fuck! Hey, back up, back up, back up! What happened? You got hit. You got shot. What's your name? What's your name? What's your name? Wake up. What's your name? What's your name? Shit. Medic! Medic!
If it starts doing that, then that it is in fact a deadbeat nation, a gulag nation, and a shell of its former self. Stacey Herbert?
Yes, Max. This is referring to Aaron Swartz, the internet activist, the man responsible for stopping SOPA. The young man, 26, he killed himself a little bit over a week ago. Now, I've been thinking about the fact that tyranny has been in the news. It's been on CNN, the Young Turks, MSNBC. Everybody's covering this story, this interview that Alex Jones gave with Piers Morgan. And the news here, the local news on Channel 4, BBC, they're covering the fact that Americans are afraid of tyranny. And yet when you look at it, there's no habeas corpus, there's no due process. The Obama administration says they can assassinate American citizens without due process. And they're locking up activists such as Aaron Swartz for 30, 40, 50 years. Some internet activists are facing 100 and something years in prison. And to me, that seems like what you used to see with gulags. It's an extreme punishment for what are the brightest people in the world. Sometimes you see these really, really, really brilliant 19, 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, and, okay, they make a mistake. Maybe they do a minor offense. Maybe they should be punished a little bit for hacking into some computer system like Stratfor. But should they face 125 years in prison?